Welcome to Owen and Brew's Barbecue. Today we're cooking up just some... Actually, all we have left is some stale old Mantel mix from last week. So, yeah, I don't have anything new.
From 4 weeks ago. Yeah.
4 weeks ago.
Yeah.
If you're joining us, again, my name's Matt. I'm joined by Nick, and we are talking about Bad Batch. So, Bad Batch spoilers ahead. And who knows if we'll ever talk about Marvel on this show again.
Oh, right.
Right, because we did that one time.
Yeah.
So today we're talking about specifically 3 episodes: Reunion, Bounty Lost, and Common Ground. We'll dive into all of the details of those. And Nick, I know you had some strong choice words for Common Ground, but...
No, not really. I do feel like, because we've tried to... Because sometimes Filoni does these in 3 episode segments, where I kind of felt that maybe the last one we talked about was the first one, and then you have Reunion and Bounty Lost kind of as the end of that trilogy. Mm-hmm. And so this Common Ground one is kind of like, oh, what is this? Is this the beginning of a new one, or is it just a standalone kind of fluff? Like, I didn't know.
Yeah, and it's fair because we just kind of randomly picked 3 episodes. It just scheduling wise, it kind of worked for us to do it in groups of 3s. But I think you're right. I think like Reunion almost feels kind of like the climax of one storyline, even though it ends on a cliffhanger that leads into Bounty Lost. Right. But I almost kind of feel like, I don't know. I guess Bounty Lost could be the end of a 4-parter maybe, but Reunion really felt kind of like this climactic moment.
It did, yeah. The Reunion, I think, of this trilogy, at least these 3 episodes that we're covering today, was definitely the best of the 3.
Oh,
yeah. I was frustrated with the end of Bounty Lost, in that, Common Ground basically didn't bring us back to Cad Bane at all, and I was like, oh, they're just gonna leave it like that. Like, oh, I'm just okay. They got the best of me. I'm not gonna show up this episode. I was kind of,
you won't see me for another 9 years.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like, okay, yeah. Anyway, we can get into that later, but
well, let's talk about the one that we loved the most, which was Reunion. I think you're right, and it does right now have one of the highest ratings of all the Bad Batch episodes, including the first pilot episode. Currently, right now, usually as IMDb goes a week out, like those ratings kind of come down a tick or a tick.
A tick.
But that one was. It felt the most Clone War-ish.
Yeah, for
you
sure.
know, and also like them having that foe, or that, like seeing Roshir again.
Roshir. Yeah.
Seeing him again, like really, I don't know, it made it seem more real to me.
I think that's what we were kind of wanting. I think we had even made that comment that we hadn't seen Crosshair in a few episodes, and it was nice to kind of get back to that storyline of like how we need to progress that story a little bit further, and that, okay, like how far has he delved into, the chip, commanding him what to do, and and I liked a lot of things that happened in this episode just because it was like, oh, like the stakes seemed real, in this one.
Yeah, and also just the way that it kind of progressed, it really felt kind of kept you on the edge of your seat.
I even liked how you had a little bit of a mix there of when in the beginning of the episode, when not the beginning, but right there towards the beginning of when Crosshair lands on the planet and they're all getting out of the shuttle, how you see like you still have basically 3 squads of clone troopers, but you still have those that original squad with him of specialists, that are not what's the word I'm looking for? Where they're not mercenaries, but they're conscripts, soldiers.
Oh, okay.
So they're regular people underneath Crosshair, but yet you still have the squads of the clones there.
Right. That's a good thing to note there. I love the landscape of that scrapyard, so I'm kind of glad that they stuck into that environment. I know you and I talked about it on the previous episode, how I was like, well, what if we see them go back to this planet? Little did I know that they would still be on it.
Right.
And it seemed like a perfect opportunity, like they could maybe have captured Crosshair, or and maybe that's too obvious. Maybe they're playing this out. Maybe at the end of this one, you almost feel kind of like maybe they'll never get Crosshair back.
Right.
Like,
yeah. That it didn't make sense to me either that they would still be on the planet, because Rex clearly told them, that the scrappers, would report them if they were found, and they were found.
But they were also trying to make some money off of some of like scavenging, basically.
Right.
And then they had that like interesting like little conversation at the beginning where I can't remember who's talking to Hunter about Rex, and the comments made like, well, he's on a different path.
Oh, right. That was Echo.
Okay. And then Echo, like he says, like, we're soldiers. What other path is there for us, kind of?
Yeah, but I agree with both of them. But that even though Echo is part of the Bad Batch, he's always going to have some loyalty to Rex because he is a reg, a regular soldier, and he has a history with Rex, whereas then the other ones don't. They're more of a casual respect. So that Echo's going to have a little bit more trust with Rex, whereas the other ones, they've always been a tight unit. That's all they know. And so they're not going to, even though Echo's right that they probably be working for some small band of the earlier bit of the rebellion, and like training soldiers, and they probably paid handsomely for it. But to them, it's like, but then we're choosing a side, which I don't think they've really done yet.
No, they really haven't, even though they're running from the Empire. And this will come back to common ground. But staying on Reunion, I do like the fact that when we do get a showdown with, basically Crosshair knowing how they operate, like, oh, you were listening in, like, yeah, I kind of figured that, it was like a nice, on rewatch, I thought this episode, like, it had more meat where you could come back and you're like, ooh, that's pretty smart how they did that. Because if you're just watching it one time through, you kind of like, okay, bad guys are going to find them, but how he found them, and then even that comment from Omega where she's basically like trying to like, hey, Crosshair, like, I know it's not you. Like she's kind of the first one, and like I said, I have always kind of wanted them to get Crosshair back, but he is kind of the perfect villain because he comes from them, so he thinks like them. And in other Star Wars animation shows or even just Star Wars shows, we're always shown a bad villain, right? And we kind of like think of that as like the point person that's going to chase them down or be the foil to the good crew or the good cause, right? And this show is pretty much heavily like avoiding any of the Darth Vader stuff. Like Darth Vader's doing his own thing. We don't need Darth Vader.
No.
And that totally makes sense.
It's because nothing so far warrants his attention because it's just a handful of clones. Like who cares about a handful of clones in the bigger picture,
right?
So,
well, and they kind of made a point of that. Like as I was rewatching these episodes, like even in Reunion at the beginning, I think they're kind of like, who cares? Like but Crosshair does. Like Crosshair still cares, and we don't really know how much is being said between Tarkin and the commander that's basically like got a
the other officer,
who's in charge of War Mantle apparently, or War Mantle is going to be a thing. So I don't even see his name listed in the.
I have it written down somewhere.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Not on these notes, but from the first episode he was introduced.
Yeah, Rampart. So I knew it was something with an R. So Rampart, Vice Admiral Rampart. So that's the only other real like kind of villain that we have, but we haven't seen the teeth or like the actual like true nature of Rampart. So for this War Mantle.
But you wonder, like, because from all of the things that I've read and you've read, most Imperial officers aren't that smart. The ones that like Tarkin's smart because that's the way he always has been. And he's not really a product of the Imperial Navy and Academy. He's old school. Whereas in like if you read what we've talked about from a certain point of view, that's when they actually break down a lot of those officers and the from Empire Strikes Back, from Star Wars, and like their motivations, and a lot of them are just career admirals or generals, and they don't really care. They just want to keep going up in rank, But of course, with every step they go up the ladder, the more closer they are to being killed by Vader. So it's like it's kind of a catch-22. That's one of the things I liked about the book. It was like just the kind of what's
the
in
nuances.
the head. What's in the head of General Veers, what's in the head of Nita, Admiral Nita, all these things that happen. Captain Nita,
he got his apology though, so it was accepted. Yeah. So I'm still curious. Like, is this like something that I'm just hoping to happen with Crosshair, or will this kind of play out where they? Because I mean, really, like the threat of the chip is kind of gone for them, so you don't have that. The sort of Damocles is no longer hanging over Wrecker or, even Teak. So, although I thought it was interesting, we got a little heart-to-heart moment with Tech and Omega when they're on the bridge together, and Omega's asking like him, oh, well, what was the war like, and
he gives him a very analytical.
Yeah. There was a primary objective.
On several fronts. No, but that's not what I mean. I told you. But that's where, whereas you just said a few minutes ago, that was the part of the episode that did kind of strike me as someone who's as smart as Tech. He would have thought about that with Crosshair. Like I thought of it immediately when he says, "I'm going to tap into their communications." It's like, wait a minute, you're going against an opponent right now that has been with you for years. I was like, he's obviously going to think about that, or like, okay, I'm against my old squad. What are our usual habits? And so you've got to think outside the box when you're dealing with Crosshair. And maybe that's just to drive that point home for this episode. And then when they deal with him next time, they'll do something completely different.
Right. And maybe that, because I mean, this is really like, this is the reunion. This is the first time that they've had this run in together, and how it would play out. And the fact that, he showed his true teeth, that he would come after them. Like no matter if it meant killing them. The whole engine scene, I love seeing like the inside, like the fact that they're inside one of those the engines basically, and it's going to ignite. And I just like the drama of that, and the fact that they explode the entire like casing around that and use that as their escape. So some pretty smart or kind of fun things that I think that the animators and writers were thinking about when they were working through like the dynamics of getting them from point A to point B. So.
But I agree. Like it was a great shot, a great, interesting concept of showing us these old ventilator class ships, of like seeing, because you see that deck in episode 3 very clearly, like when it's in action. The very opening scene of episode 3, firing above Coruscant, and then now to see it all as that same kind of deck be rusted out and just full of grime and everything, and you're like, oh, that's so cool, like because you can put those mental images together. At least I did, and then of course seeing them walk through this ship again, and then the engine. But what I liked about this whole sequence and that scene in particular is you've seen how programmed Crosshair is now, but you're also seeing this situation how he's head over heels. Like he's fully 100% going with this. I mean, he's 100% prepared to burn them out of existence in that situation. And he's so arrogant about it that he actually stands up as soon as the engine fires up to leave. Like, like now they're going to be burned up. That's the end of that. And then until it explodes, that's when he kind of goes back. And I liked how the outcome of that, with his arrogance of getting back into position to try to shoot them, that the engine flames hit him in the face. And it is almost a Vader-esque moment there where it burns him and there's nothing he can do about it. And, and then of course he's out and they find him. And then, next time you see him, he's got the face vent all over and like his whole face is wrapped up and you're like, wow, like he's.
And Dengar-esque.
Dengar. Yeah, you're right. That looks more like Dengar. Yeah.
I mean, and for a moment there, I was like, "You're not telling me that."
It's Dengar.
Like I was like, "No, this can't be." But we like callbacks and we like references as Star Wars fans. I mean, that's always kind of fun, or the echoes as they occur. But it does feel like very much like a Vader moment or an Anakin being scarred. Like it almost feels like with this reunion that it's like a step too far. He tried to kill them heartlessly, like, although they weren't scarred by it, he is now scarred by it. And it's almost like his anger has scarred him to the point where we don't know if he could ever come back from that. I do wonder, though, because it blasted his eyes, if we won't see him with some kind of cybernetic eye, or if they go that route with him.
It's true.
I kind of hope
it was his left eye though, and his he's the right eye for his sniper. So, but yeah, that could be a good call. Who knows?
I mean, I'm not always all for cybernetics for cybernetics' sake. Like, we gotta have a cybernetic, part in here. But
a little too Terminator. Now.
Terminator.
Yeah, it's like he's got the red eye, like half metal there. And next time you see him, he'll be in a hallway, and they'll look at him, and you hear dun 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 dun. What's going on here? Just kind of walking at them with an arm held out. Yeah.
There is that. There's a villain in Droids, the cartoon Droids. The now Legends, or whatever they're calling it. Sorry, I'm blanking on it. In Disney Plus, they have a whole section for the vintage. That's what they're calling it, vintage Star Wars. Which, by the way, I do think vintage Star Wars. This is just me as a hopeful fan. Is that vintage Star Wars as a little thing on the Disney Plus? They could easily put on the Star Wars, the uncut Star Wars, and call it vintage, and kind of circumvent even ever releasing it, because it's just on streaming. Like obviously people can burn it, and it's copyright infringement to throw it out there, and who knows if you or I have bootleg copies of that. But but the point is that this would be a great avenue if they want to kind of get Star Wars fans excited, is release the original trilogy in the vintage section, the uncut version, the despecialized as we know it. So that was just kind of a side thought. But in the Droids cartoon, there is an Imperial commander or whatever who's got the red eye, like that was his villain, status has got the no relation, I'm sure. So okay, so reunion, really, really cool dynamics for this, throughout they even mentioned the not the Sarlacc. Boy, my brain is not set for today and all my Star Wars knowledge. But the eye that pops up. Why am I in that?
Oh, I must have missed that part. Okay.
The Dianoga. They mention the Dianoga. At the very beginning, they're kind of talking and walking, and they say something about the Dianoga. And I was like, ha! So that was a Dianoga in the water. I mean, we all kind of assumed that that's what it was. But to hear that kind of confirmation was kind of cool. All of this action happening, and it kind of almost disguised, or at least kind of covered, the surprise ending there, right? Yeah,
that was neat, because you're totally thrown off. I agree. By once you see Crosshair be kind of burned, and then they're running back, you just fully expect for them to knock out or stun the remaining troopers, get on the ship, and go. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, there's a little twist. They get there, and the clone troopers are all dead, and you're like, what's going on? And then sure enough, you see Cad Bane, very Western, just kind of hanging out. And of course, we talked about this just very briefly a few days ago. His hat was smaller than it was in the Clone Wars. It's a narrow brim hat versus the one in the Clone Wars is very big, very almost sombrero-esque, big.
Yeah, almost to the point of ridiculosos. But and I guess through his adventures, he's lost his original hat. So perhaps this is a secondary hat.
I was happy to see him. This did cause a little bit of uproar amongst diehard Clone Wars fans who are familiar with the deleted concepts and artwork of season 6 that was never fully finished. Because in season 6, there actually is 3D animation of a standoff between Cad Bane and Boba Fett. And it's the first time I think Boba Fett dons his actual armor.
Oh, okay.
and so he's very young still, but it's just like it was almost in this episode with the Western standoff between Cad Bane and Boba Fett.
Interesting.
And the other bounty hunter, like Bosk, is there as well as another bounty hunter, and they kind of stand down. It's like, let's let the kid prove himself. And actually, in this concept, Boba Fett kills Cad Bane. And so I could see where people would be upset with that because that's what they think to be canon. But I can also see Filoni going, well, it was never fully made, so now I have another purpose for Cad Bane. And who's to say? Because right now Boba Fett is probably 16 years old at this point in time. We could still have the same thing happen in Bad Batch, to where there is a standoff at some point.
And can I just say about canon? I'm kind of annoyed by the term canon and Star Wars canon, especially with the announcement of Star Wars Visions. Now, did you watch the trailer for Star Wars Visions yet?
I did not yet.
Okay. Totally cool. I'm really excited about Star Wars Visions. And there's even a tie-in novel, or a kind of a secondary novel that is coming out called Ronin. And the loose plot behind it is that the Jedi sided with the Empire, and it is the Sith that are like kind of the Ronin warriors out in the galaxy. And that's just the general idea of it. And I absolutely love this idea. Like, let's have fun with the Star Wars universe.
Right. Let's
not be so like held on to. I know Dark Horse had Infinities. This is not called Infinities. This is not Marvel What If. Just let it be Visions. Let it be its own thing. But let's have like a lot of different artists and creators come up with cool stories. Where they fit in, is it canon? Is it not canon? Like, and you as a political historian, I would think would also enjoy like the idea that at some point the Sith become the good and the Jedi become the bad, and then you almost have like a flip back and forth between the dualities of them.
It's always a point of view, because I think we've probably talked about, everyone in their mind has an idea of what they think the history or the timeline of Star Wars should be, because there's a lot of uncovered ground. And that's kind of how I see it. Like, from what we know about the father and the son and the daughter, is like, you can get that on a planet to where like, they actually started training people to be, force sensitive. The people who were force sensitive, like, train them to learn how to be balanced. And then at some point, something happens to where the son goes completely dark side, the daughter goes completely good side, whereas it was maybe a little bit more neutral in the beginning. And then the son, maybe he only trains a couple people to be fully dark side, but then the daughter and the father say, like, we have to eliminate this, we have to get rid of it. And that's just enough spark to where like this dark side spins off, and like they flee into the deep parts of the galaxy, and that's where it all begins. And so from their point of view, it could be that like, we were persecuted because we believe something different. So then in their minds, they could think they were good. And that could be the dawn of the Jedi, to the point where it's like, like the daughter's few troops that she had left, that was their mission from that point on, was to protect and try
form
to bring
a council.
Form a council, just to protect the and that's right. How you. But that's
protect the unity, the ring of the
Right.
There's tons of
yeah.
And I think that's it's awesome. It's awesome that we can kind of again like play like we were kids with the toys. You know what I mean? Like, and the thing with when you played with your toys, you came up with stories. You put them back in the box, and you came up with a new story the next day.
True.
So as opposed to getting like so nitpicky as like, how does this fit into canon? How is this Legends? How is this true, or is this, just enjoy it? You know what I'm saying? So I'm really excited about Visions. It looks like it should be a fun thing, and I think it's coming September on Disney Plus is what I remember.
It's like I'm not sure if I sent that meme to you or not, but it was funny. It was when your wife is predicted to have a certain death, but you're born in the wrong trilogy, and it shows like force healing in the sequel trilogy. It's like no. But that's something like I always knew of force healing. I don't like the way the sequel trilogy did it, and that you're giving up part of your essence in a way to heal it. Like, I know in the video games, it was always just like you're just manipulating the midichlorians. They'd say midichlorians, but you just manipulate the force to heal stuff. It wasn't like life saving, but it was just a way to like heal you a little bit, and like, that's fine.
I mean, from a paranormal side of things, I do like the idea that you give a little in order to like bring something back. There is a little bit of like, I mean, anything with paranormal, you're always paying something in order to like give. It's the deal with the devil, you know. So, anyway, sorry to get sidetracked on that, but we were talking about Cad Bane and this idea of the season 6, the lost season. This also ties into I finished Dark Apprentice.
You did good.
Is it Dark Disciple?
Dark Disciple. I
always do that. I always think it's Dark Apprentice. Dark Disciple, loved it. It was really good. There was, as an audiobook, there's like a lot of back and forth, and there's a lot of moments where you're like, because you're not reading it, you're like, oh, this sounds like this is getting to the climax, and you're like, oh no, you're only halfway through the book.
Yeah.
That's
what I mean.
Just
like
keeps going and going, and you're like, oh, I think it's over, and you're like, no, there's still another quarter of the book to go, and you're just like, it just keeps evolving, and you can, at least in the audiobook, and I'm not sure if this was in the printed copy, but in the audio one at the very end, it has, I want to say that it has like a thing about Katie Lucas, who had. I mean, she wrote some of the stories, and she kind of had the loose outline or the pen, like it was her job to write this story, even though she didn't write that book.
The book, right? But because my understanding of it is that like the first, because to me there's 3 sections of that book, and like the beginning part are the 4-episode arc, which I know is going to be in Clone Wars season 6. And then there's like a little middle bit that's I think that Christine, I can't remember her name, but like the author of the book, I think she wrote that bit. And then the last bit of the book, like you said, like there's multiple climaxes in it. I think the last bit of it is the last 4-episode arc that would have been in probably could have been in season 6 or it could have been in season 7. What would have been season 7 of the Clone Wars.
And that part specifically, when Katie Lucas is talking, she's talking about love lost and losing someone that you love, or the pain of letting go of someone that you love. And you really kind of get that dynamic without someone. And I'm not even saying like through death. I'm saying like through addiction or through like their personality or whatever they're going through. But there is a bit of that turmoil that's going on with the characters. So I recommend it if you enjoy the Clone Wars era. I mean, Nick has recommended this to me. I've seen it. I saw it on the bookshelf, years ago as a paperback, and I was like, oh, I want to get that. I want to read that. So
I haven't read it in 6 years. I read it when it came out. I loved it when it came out because I got people. You've probably heard me if you listen to us a lot. Ventress is my favorite character of all Star Wars. I don't know why. She just is. Just something about the duality of being bad, but there's a really good part in you.
And you really see. It's funny too because we're talking about all of this good and light and good, and that meme that I sent us today about the yin yang.
Right.
So I'll try to share that on Instagram or when we post this podcast so that people can see that. But I mean,
I don't think it'll happen. But I would love to see that book be adapted to cartoons, but because I think there's a lot of people out there that don't know, because if you just watch the Clone Wars and that's it, you have no idea what happened to Ventress, there's not enough people out there that really know.
It's also frustrating too because I do think that I mean, and we know this as Star Wars fans. There's just treasure troves of stories and really good stories and really great kernels of ideas and characters in these books. And some of them have been pulled from, some of them have been brought to life, but none have ever been like, oh, I'm going to adapt this. I'm gonna, because it's like every artist, every creator wants to have their own spin on it. Almost, it's like right. Oh, I can't just take this other person's material.
Well, it's just like the 2 things from season 6 that were made available to people was that book, Dark Disciple, and then the comic book, Son of Dathomir, which is
the Darth Maul and Savage Opress.
So that is a key comic book for anyone out there that wants to know the little bit of space between
season 6 and season 7, the lost season.
Yeah, you need to read that comic book just to find out kind of what happened with Maul between.
And,
yes,
yeah, and if you're a fan of Maul,
Yeah.
like it's definitely worth it. I was able to find some copies pretty reasonably too, because for a while there, the first printings of that, because it was part of the last of the Dark Horse line of comics, those 4 became really hard to find, and their price really kind of was keeping a steady, just the popularity of the character, and then also the rarity of the prints. But you can also find it in a trade paperback form if you're.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I have is the graphic novel. Yeah, but I could see that though, the actual original comic books being worth quite a bit, because it's something that I think it would be highly sought after.
Yeah, I mean, for the story, for the character, and then also just how it lines up with the fact that it's the end of the Dark Horse line before it switched over to Marvel again. So I'm now, and I've been listening to a lot of Star Wars audiobooks just as it just works really great with my work and getting some stuff done. But I've also dove into the High Republic, the second book called Rising Storm. The Rising Storm.
I didn't think it was released yet. Did it just get released?
It came out like June 29th.
Okay.
The second book in that series, and it definitely picks up with a lot of the characters that it established in the first book. It has elements in it that I think also appeared in the comics, so they are definitely connecting some of those things together. I like this time period. I like the fact that we have all new characters and we're kind of following different storylines, and also learning that they really kind of play upon that idea of Jedis being attached to something. So. That definitely plays a theme in both books so far, is that Jedi attachment to either your master who you're working with, master apprentice kind of thing, but also perhaps there's some love involvements as well. So kind of interested to see how that plays out. And
yeah, I've got them on my list on Amazon to buy, so I'll get them both. I haven't read them both, but and then there's another book coming out I'm really interested in. It's like
real quick though, on that book, there's a couple covers out there. The one cover that I think looks totally BA, and if I got it in hard book like version, it looks really cool because it has like these almost like devil dogs, and like the Jedi's like spinning. He's like spinning the lightsaber, so it's got a cool, like almost like Thor kind of like. So if you're looking for a copy of it, that one looks I think the coolest, because it's just got an action sequence happening on it with Jedi fighting.
The cover on Amazon just has 3 Jedi standing there with lightsabers.
Yeah, with the lightsabers up. Yeah. So and nothing wrong with that. I think the one that's bearded plays a pretty important part, but he's kind of like the Obi-Wan so far. It's the beard. Go ahead.
I'm not sure when this book's being released. I've read little excerpts of it. It's something like Secrets of the Sith or Journal of the Sith or something like that. And,
Mm-hmm.
And it looks pretty good. And like a lot of it's like from Sidious's point of view of like just things he wrote. It's not a book. It's not a novel. It's just kind of like, but like one of the things I was reading about was it was talking about how his like the Sith's point of view of the prophecy. And like they fully believed that Anakin was the chosen one, but from their point of view, it was like the Jedi never saw it as the way they saw it. It was like, yeah, he's bringing balance. He's going to kill off all of you, and then it will be us two and then a handful. So the Force actually will be balanced of like just pure and like, it's not because at that point there's more Jedi than Sith. So
it was unbalanced.
Overwhelmingly unbalanced.
My son's read that, and also there's the Jedi one too, Path of the Jedi, I believe.
Maybe I do have that one. I just never read it. Okay.
You might, because it's got all of the comments on the sides by different people that have had the book too, the Sith one and the Jedi one. But yeah, it falls right in my son's line of like fictional fact, if that's a thing, like having like a book that's like in the universe and it's called something, but a book that like exists within the universe that provides you facts about the, without actually having a story, and And then they made a bounty hunter one, the bounty hunter code.
Yeah, I remember the bounty. Yeah, okay, so that is the book. I own the Jedi and the Sith one. Then I had them in storage for so long. I have no idea where they're at.
It can be because it's not a story. Sometimes it can be a little more like, oh, I'm just like reading
just
for
a book of facts. Yeah,
yeah. But if you're in that mood, though, for sure,
I tend to like stuff like that, especially if you can, put it if it's done like a journal. To where like, oh, this is 32, ABY. I mean, and so like, oh, okay, so here's this time, and then but I know it's not probably, but I was like, oh, that'd be cool. Another thing I wanted to, because we're still kind of talking about reunion this episode. The one thing at the very end of the episode that a lot of people probably didn't understand or catch wise to was that, after Cad Bane and Hunter have their standoff and, Hunter's out and Omega gets taken by Cad Bane, the next thing you see, other than Crosshair coming to, is you see Hunter come to. And you're seeing it from a point of view through his visor, which is I don't think has ever happened before.
Oh.
And that is actually an homage or a tribute to a 2005 video game called Republic Commando. Because that's how they saw everything. And then, because if you notice, when you see through his visor, he's got a white circle in the middle of it. That's exactly what you saw in the video game. So it's just one of those things that, like, if you get it, you get it. If you don't, it's like, oh, that's cool. They did that.
I would not have known that. That's a cool deep dive there.
Yeah.
So breaking out like a nugget. So
yeah, well, it's just one of there's probably a lot of listeners out there that didn't even play video games in 2005. So it's like
there's probably a lot of listeners that are like, but you missed the part with the hammerhead and with playing the Jarek.
Right.
That's later yet.
Yeah.
But Reunion, a solid episode though.
Yeah, great episode.
I think this was also the episode that I was kind of when we heard that Chris had stopped at a certain point, and we were like, oh, you really should watch the next couple, man. And I would say that Bounty Lost, does continue this as far as having kind of those Clone War feels,
Yeah.
And I've noticed that as I watch Bad Batch, there's a few elements that I'm always kind of like excited to see or excited to like get more of. One is the Empire. Like, for whatever reason, I've watched Rebels, we get a lot of Empire, but seeing the early formations of the Empire and what they're doing is kind of like, oh, that's interesting. You know what I mean? Like, it's like tracking what the Empire is doing. And number two, specifically, is the cloners.
Yeah.
I think because in Attack of the Clones, like, I always wanted to know more about the cloners, and you only get a little bit of them and even in the Clone Wars. Like, it's like, you see them in what, 5 episodes, maybe 10,
right.
Like at most. They're always dealing with like the clones themselves. So getting more of them is always exciting.
Well, I have a little bit of hope, and you've seen it a little bit with Bad Batch because it's on Disney Plus. It's actually a Disney product that I think Filoni can go a little bit darker with, like in tone and things that they're doing. Because whereas in Rebels and Clone Wars was made for Cartoon Network, he had to kind of keep it a little bit more on the G side.
But Clone Wars progressively got darker.
It did. Yeah.
And so did Rebels. Sure.
But I think that we could even see like arms possibly be like taken off. Or things in this series. I feel, and then with the Empire, like, 'cause you look at Rebels, you look at the Empire. Well, basically, we were just shown buffoons. And from the Empire's point that the Empire was buffoons in Rebels, whereas in this one we could see them actually be conniving and cunning, and like, oh, like this could actually see a different side to, like, other than Thrawn in Rebels, that was the only person you saw that had any kind of intelligence.
But also, to your point though, we were talking about like Imperial commanders, like 20, so we're basically saying like 20 years from now they've just become backstabbing, conniving, like, like rats, basically. So they have no spine and they have no like actual military knowledge, right? They're just kind of shells. Whereas here, I think with Rampart, we might even see the fact that you have somebody who has some military power, is wanting to flex that over Tarkin, and Tarkin might end up being like the backstabber that's just like, and we're done here, Right. So, I don't know. These are just kind of like larger sketches of the Empire, but we could see where at some point, all of the smart people are going to be stabbed in the back, and all that's left is backstabber Loki's.
Could happen.
So, yeah. Where was I going with all of that? The Empire, the Formation, the cloners. I just like seeing the cloners whenever they appear. And Bounty Lost, we get not only cloners, but we get a secondary cloner location.
Yeah, I thought that was neat. I mean, you can see the architecture was very similar to Camino, but it almost looked like Bespin.
Yeah,
because now you don't, instead of oceans, you see the bottom side of these same structures.
And not only a Bespin, but like a decayed Bespin. Like it definitely looked older, which was interesting. And one of the actual clone tubes had a clone in it.
Oh,
or a cloner. Like I think that's the body that falls.
Oh, yeah, but it falls on her, right?
Yeah, it's a cloner. So I thought that was kind of interesting. Like, of course you've cloned yourselves. Like you've mastered the art of taking DNA sequences and finding the best things that you want from that. So anyway, Bounty Lost. You probably have some more notes here as far as like the maybe like the main points or the exciting.
Well, no, I like that it started right at the end of the last episode. So you see now they're in space, trying to flee Crosshair, and Crosshair's hot on the trail trying to kill them or shoot them at us, down. And then Hunter being Hunter is more thinking about Omega, but they have to kind of talk sense into him and say like, no, we've got to get out of here. Like there's no way we can find her. And so he's like reluctantly says, okay, make the jump. So I guess he just feels that he's lost, and he doesn't know what to do.
They make the comment like, it's better to live and fight another day. No, sorry, that's the next episode.
Oh.
So both this episode and the next episode have the same message of like, sometimes you have to like let go of what you want to accomplish in order to, and leave in order to come back. And so, so I just thought that was an interesting parallel as I was rewatching this. I was like, these both have that same kind of theme. So
was the chameleon? I never say it right.
Chameleon?
Yeah. Was the female not the one that's on Omega's side, but the other one that gets killed? Was that the same one from episode 2? Tuan Wee was her name. Because the voice sounded exactly the same as the one that says the one that says to Obi-Wan, like, I'll be happy to introduce you. Like the voice sounded exactly the same.
That's some pretty good ears there. Let me just double check, but Tan Wei was the name of that cloner, and you are correct.
Wow,
she was the voice in. Wow, I feel like you just won a trivia prize or something like that. But she is the one that is killed and murdered.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Because I thought like as soon as she spoke, I was like, oh, that sounds like the one from episode 2. That like it was the tour guide for Obi-Wan.
Yeah,
and then I was shocked to see that she got killed so easily. I was like, oh, what's pity? But yeah,
right. But definitely raising the stakes, and it's limited on the number of characters that are on this location that they end up going to. I do like Omega's smarts, like, and we also, this does connect to the next episode, and the fact that we see her strategy. This is her strength, right? Like this is something that she can kind of like assess the situation, and she gets out of prison. Toto, we see Toto again. With the voice of Seth Green, who seems to just keep creeping and crawling throughout the Star Wars universe.
I mean, he's a big fan.
And nothing against Seth Green.
But it is one of those funny things where you kind of laugh. Like of all the things, he's this minor droid. He's only been in a few episodes, but it's one of those things that I know if I was an actor or just a voiceover actor, and someone said like, "Oh, would you like to be like this little minor character in a Star Wars cartoon?"
Yes.
I'd be like, hell yes. I don't care if I'm only in 2 episodes ever. Like, I'll do it.
You say one word in one episode, and then like 3 years later, you're in a movie. You're going to be a background character, but you're going to have 2 words this time.
Yeah, cool. 6
years later, there's a whole book about you, and there's a movie coming.
Adventures of Toto.
Right. So, but no, Toto. I believe I was reading something. I thought Anakin reconstructed him or something like that.
Oh, I don't remember.
Yeah, there was something that I was reading about, like the history of Toto and how he, like as a robot, the episodes that he had appeared in. So, anyway, well,
but yeah, I suppose like the important thing from the beginning of this episode is really after we've seen Omega, in the prison inside Cad Bane's ship and everything, is that we find out when we go back to the Bad Batch that Tech discovers and informs the rest of the crew that why Omega is important, and it's kind of been hinted at, that the Kaminoans, I'm never going to say it right. They
Kaminoans.
Kaminoans. Yeah, what a mouthful. Kaminoans. Yeah,
because you switched the vowel sound, I guess, of the A.
Yeah. Because I want to say Camino, but then I'm like, no, it's Kaminoans.
Kaminoans. The more you know.
Yeah.
Owen and Bruce. Ding.
They discover that Omega is a pure clone of Django.
Yes, this is a big deal, right? Like, I mean, like when this happened, I was like, what?
Mm-hmm.
And of course, exact copy, but she's a girl. So I guess that's just, I don't know.
Just change the chromosomes.
Just change the chromosome.
I still think, though, there's still more here. I still think that, yes, she's a pure DNA clone of Django, but she's been enhanced for sure. Because, I mean, when they say that early on the season, that there's only 5 enhanced clones, 4 from the Bad Batch and then Omega. And so you're like, okay, so and then clearly, we see from the next episode that she's really good at strategy. And I think, not to get too far ahead in the episodes, but you remember a few episodes back, why they wanted a separatist tactical droid is because they wanted someone who could do strategy. And so I could totally see this coming back around to where it's like Omega ends up joining the rebellion, or something happens to where like her brain is used for strategy for the rebellion.
Here's another side thought here, because there's still speculation, like, well, does she have the Force?
Right.
Like there is that kind of lingering. Why does she have a haircut that is so similar to Palp's? Right. Like, so here's my crackpot, even though Jack's not on the show. But I feel like I could get Jack's stamp of crackpot approval. What if we see, maybe not this season, maybe in a future season, but we see, like in a flashback or whatever, the Emperor, Darth Sidious actually visiting Camino, and we see him like as he's walking by these, and it's Boba and Omega just as embryos even. It could be early on in their development. Yeah, that all he has to do is like wave his hand. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I'm just throwing that out there.
It could happen. I'm kind of in the camp though that
you just like keep her force free.
No, not that at all. That's fine.
Okay.
Like I'm kind of in the camp though that, and I probably will always think that because nothing has ever really been shown except from like that one comic line that it was more. Plagueis that created Anakin and all that, and then Palpatine was just an opportunist, like a lot of apprentices are, and I don't think he ever really learned that power. He said he did, but I don't think he ever did. But that's because that goes into my whole, like what we talked about just a minute ago, like about how I think the story should have gone, and that Plagueis was really the master, the true master.
We're not going to get into that tonight.
Yeah.
We're not going to.
But I would have liked it better if Plagueis would have come back in the sequel trilogy. And
save that for episode 10.
Yeah.
All right. Bounty lost, though. We do get a showdown, though, between 2 bounty hunters. And I felt like we got a little bit of the, Cad Bane kind of being the senior bounty hunter, and also kind of giving her comeuppings, but. With
Fennec.
It was on the tip of my brain. But yes, with Fennec, almost capturing her, and Omega having the smarts to take a spacecraft up into space, only to fall and almost die. But then Rekka comes to save the day. So
yeah, I kind of wondered about that too. It's one of those questionable things. Like if I'm flying in out of space into orbit and I see this little ball
capsule, do we catch it?
Yeah, like do we catch it? Do we have the magnetic ability on this ship to catch something probably flying through the air right now?
Okay, knowing tech though, they come in out of hyperspace. They're like, and he's like scanning the area. And they find a bleep. Like he's like, I'm seeing that a spacecraft has just, exited this ship or whatever, an escape pod. And he's like, I'm scanning for life now, right?
Right.
And he's like, it's
a small life form,
right? And then they're like, it's Omega. We got to get it. That's how I filled that in. So it's in a comic book.
If anyone can help me, help. I don't know. I can't do it.
I felt like this was like too quick, like Bounty lost, and it gave away the whole plot and the title.
Yeah, true. I mean, this episode and as well as the next one, I kind of felt they were more action episodes than plot episodes. Because the first one was too, but it had some layers to it. Whereas in this one, like I said, I have like a half a page written for Bounty Lost. I have like a paragraph for Common Ground. It's just kind of like, okay, like we get it, because like a lot of it is her just trying to get out of her prison cell. Once she gets out of her prison cell, she's trying to contact them, and then a lot of it's just the fight back and forth between Fennec and Cad Bane. And then if you just fast forward over that, or just kind of like you could literally just sum up the plot like, oh, they fight, and then she escapes. There you go.
Bob's your uncle.
Bob's your uncle. Yeah.
I do like seeing the cloner capsule.
Fall. Yeah.
Back crashing. And
it should have been more of a shining moment of just like nightmarish horror on Fennec's side. It was like, oh my god, it's slimy. But
there's a moment at the end where Hunter, who could be like the dumbest of the group, because everybody's solving things for Hunter. So which I always thought that Hunter was like the brains, or like basically the strategist, and it's just like in a span of like 3 episodes, it's kind of shifted. But he makes a critical error that no dad character should ever say to their child. I promise.
Oh, right.
You'll never go. It's like,
and that she will.
Yeah. Right.
It's either going to happen. Either the most likely of things is that she will get caught by a bounty hunter and be taken back at some point, or it's just one of those things that we've talked about. There's going to be a crucial thing that they have to go back.
They have to go back for. Yeah. Yes, they need this, and no, that makes sense. And I'm with you. I want to clone her up. I want to clone Uprising. Like I want to see that. Maybe we don't get that this season as the pace that the show is.
It doesn't seem like it. Yeah, for this season.
But man, that would be really cool.
I think it's in the cards. It has to be. It just has to be. Like you have to show, because you see this long game of the Kaminoans. I'm getting it, everyone out there. I'm getting it slowly. You see, that they know that their time is limited. That there's a clear threat to their industry.
Right.
And so if they don't get Omega, then they have to find some other kind of species to clone. And if that doesn't work, I mean, it doesn't matter. Like they know the Empire is trying to get rid of the clones, and the Empire would most likely view any other kind of new clone or clone army as a threat to them. So they're going to, at some point, have to get rid of them. It just makes sense.
Well, and I don't want to get too spoilery here. So, but the next, would you like to know the next couple episode titles?
Sure. Go for it.
Okay. So episode 11 coming up. So spoilers, skip ahead 30 seconds if you don't want to hear these. The next episode's called Devil's Deal. Episode 12, Rescue on Ryloth. So we're going there.
We've only been there twice, I think.
Number 13 is called Infested. I do not like the sound of that. I don't like anything with bugs or infesting things. But maybe it could be something else. And the last one, episode 14, which I think is a big giveaway here that I was hinting at, War Mantle.
Oh.
So maybe we will see. Maybe we will see like the implementation of War Mantle, and so perhaps we will see what we have been predicting. So,
Infested. When I think of Infested, I think of Geonosins. So
yes, I know, right?
And I can't see, because as far as we know, there was just that one egg. It was a queen that we saw in the later Clone Wars. I think wasn't that Clone Wars? It could even be like the ship's hull is infested with something, right? Right. It could be anything. I always think Geonosins. But.
Right. Me too. That's why I was like, I don't like the sound of that. And then Devil's Deal coming up, and we've speculated about this. And I think if we're talking about 3-episode arcs, right, or an arc of anything, we've talked about it before. It relates to this next episode, Common Ground. Which, just to summarize Common Ground, you basically have a separatist leader who's been imprisoned. His droid contacts Sid to basically hire some hired guns to come and free him from this prison. And meanwhile, Omega is left back at the base there, or at the bar, basically, to hang out with Sid and scrub things, but decides, I have a way that could get us out of debt. I'm gonna mope here and basically be like called out by my grandma, who's a lizard. And she figures out a way to make some money and get some out of pocket.
Yeah, it's Bosca's mom.
Bosca's mom, Sid, played by Rhea Perlman. And the big hang up for the Bad Batch, which doesn't really emotionally come through. Rewatching this a second time, which I did today, I know that it's there, but it emotionally doesn't resonate with me. I understand it, but it didn't convey this to me as an episode, and I think that's the fact that they don't want to work with the Separatists, right?
Oh, right.
Like they're distrusting the whole time, and the whole time like, oh, this is gonna be all right. Like this is no big deal.
I mean, like any kind of conflict, there's always two sides to everything. And if you really look at the Separatists, they're not wrong. They're wrong politically, but they're not wrong in their reasoning. I mean, the leaders of the Separatists, to me, were materialistic and wanted money. I get that, but like if you look at the reasons why they left the Republic, it's because the Republic was corrupt, nothing was getting done, and so they said, you know what, we're going to just do our own thing and become our own system.
Jay would say,
"Oh yeah, I know what Jay would say. But I mean, they're both right and they're both wrong.
Okay, all I'm going to say though is that the psychological impact of Kanan having to work with, why can I not think of names? Rex. When Kanan has to work with Rex, like you can feel the tension from that. I don't feel the tension there.
Right. Well, it's just one. Yeah, it was one senator. Yeah, I get it.
And I mean, it was, so I guess that's my criticism of the episode. Other than that, I actually enjoy the fact that Omega does like come into her own. She kind of has to figure it out on her own, like to be a strategist to win at playing this game. But then she also wins them out of debt, which I think puts Sid in a place where perhaps the Empire comes knocking, right? Or perhaps a bounty hunter comes, and there's almost kind of like a forced hand where she's going to turn them over. So
I think there could be.
So I guess that's where I was thinking this Devil's Deal.
The Devil's Deal could actually be multi-layered in this, because you're right. Like the way you originally were going with, because they're making a deal, obviously, with the Separatist senator that could have multiple outcomes. You saw at the very end of the episode, you saw where Hunter made a bargain with Omega, like to be now fully part of the squad,
right?
And then you make a really good valid point there with Sid, like if she gets put in a corner, no one puts Sid in a corner. What will she do to save her own neck?
Yeah.
But I think it's one of those. It's going to be one of those moments where she. I mean, if let's just go down that road.
Yeah,
it would be one of those where it'll be almost like a
Lando.
It'll be a Lando moment.
It's got to be a Lando moment where she's put into a situation, she betrays them, but then there's got to be a redemption moment,
right?
And that's I don't know why I think that from Sid. It's just I don't trust the lizard people, and neither should you. I'm sorry, I'm so down on them. I do like Bosk as a character, and if Sid is decent the whole time and doesn't turn on him, and it's all for naught. It seems like it could happen. Devil's Deal could also be, I like what you said, we could see the Senator come back because they did that one mission. As we know with Clone War episodes, sometimes they introduce someone just to bring them back. He could be looking for them, like, hey, I know you rescued me, but I need you to help me out, and them being like, we're not fighting your separatist war. Maybe we can see a little bit more of that aggression or that tension that I said was lacking. So,
I
I just don't see it.
We could see,
but
Rex,
I just don't see it. Yeah,
it could be a number of things.
Yeah.
It could be a number of things of like where he's trying to reach out for anyone that would help him. And like maybe he wants to join the rebellion. Who knows? Like it could be any kind of thing where it's gonna. But we're definitely gonna see some kind of betrayal. And I think in the next episode, just based on the title.
Yeah, and we also talked about the other title that sounds like, again, we might see a little bit more of that Rampart dude, Vice Admiral Rampart. He's not old; he's young. He's looking for the ladies. All right, those are those 3 episodes. We've gone on pretty long enough that we actually technically have to take a commercial break. So, other than that,
I'm just trying to read if there's anything that we missed. I don't think so.
Talked a lot of Star Wars. The Visions. I was trying to think if there was anything else. Star Wars.
Have you watched on Disney Plus the Starro Biomes? It's not really a series. It's just landscapes. I just saw it today. I was like, oh, that's pretty neat. And I think they peaked a little early because the first thing you see is Hoth when you turn it on. You're like, and that's cool. And then it kind of goes downhill from there. And you're like, you could just left it like a screensaver on Hoth. I should have left it on that all day.
Yeah, it is kind of nice to play through, and it's kind of peaceful as just kind of a background. I hope they do other biomes. Yeah,
I mean, right now it's just an 18-minute one, and they go to Hoth, Tatooine, the planet in Mandalorian where they had all the blue liquor that they made, and then Mustafar, and then they end it with the planet that Luke was on in The Last Jedi.
Yeah, that's right. It is peaceful. I know I've seen it a couple times. My son likes to put it on, and it'll fly by or swoop by like a tauntaun, so you'll hear a tauntaun call, or you'll hear or you'll hear like the sizzling of stuff. So
that's what I liked, is especially with the Hoth, because Hoth I think is the longest one of all of them, and because you see the speeders come by, and they go around the mountain, and then all of a sudden you see the probe droid like hit the snow, and then it comes out, and you're just hearing all the sound effects is what makes it cool. Then in the background you see the AT-ATs walking, and you're like, it's so cool.
It's basically a fireplace for the Star Wars.
Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah, it's a screensaver. It's a kick-ass screensaver.
Yeah, no, for sure. I felt like there was something else Star Wars related, but that I wanted to talk about, but for the life of me, I can't remember what it is. We'll probably be back in 3 weeks, to talk more about these episodes of the Bad Batch. I do enjoy having Star Wars Weekly, so I'm never going to complain. I can kick the tires about some of these episodes and be like, oh, I want this more, but it's it's still enjoyable though, and I like these characters. I like being in this world. So
I also liked Sid giving them like their own kind of nicknames, because she calls Hunter Bandana.
Oh, I did. I liked that. I was trying to fit that into one of the names, like Bandana Joanna.
Oh yeah, that rhymes. Yeah. I mean, like, because like we've all thought that, like, oh, Hunter is basically Rambo, with and like they're all the squad from Predator. It's like, oh, okay,
yeah,
cool.
Boy, if they do bring in Rex or Ahsoka, even, I mean, fans, I just think are going to go nuts to see somebody, because that's the one thing that's kind of missing is the Jedi aspect. and it's something that they tried to do with Resistance, and it's really tricky to not have that Jedi element. Now I have my own.
I don't think we will. If we do, it'll be very, very limited. I think because it's one of those. Right now, we're in that period where the Jedi are hiding, and you don't want people knowing that they're out there.
No, for sure. And
I mean, it's the same as like we'll see with the Obi-Wan series, which that's fine. That's its own thing. But like you see it even in Rogue One there, like where towards the end where Mon Mothma looks at Senator Organa very quietly, like,
right.
What about your friend, the Jedi? Like very quietly, like they don't want anyone knowing. So it's just it's to me it's because that period has passed.
Yes.
If I see Ahsoka, I think it'll be one of those moments where you see her in a hologram or something, or maybe like the side of her arm, or maybe a
and from what I understand from the books too, like she goes into hiding as well, as far as like hiding her she doesn't break out the lightsabers.
Right.
So in fact the book, like she doesn't have any lightsabers. So until towards the end. And
I wondered if that's the other $1 million question too. Like if we did get an episode with Ahsoka in it, who's going to voice it?
Oh, I would assume Ashley Eckstein.
I would assume it'd be Ashley Eckstein, but you never know. Like it could be Rosario Dawson. If they want her to.
I think if they ever wanted to like switch over, and I think fans would probably like also be in Ashley Eckstein's corner on this. But I think if they ever wanted to do a switch over, you just have to like decide of an age. Like, okay, everything up to this point we're using her voice. Everything after this point we're using this voice or something. Yeah. So,
I agree.
Yeah. But,
I mean, I would just be in Ashley Eckstein's corner as well. Like for the cartoon, I think it's hers.
Oh, let's go ahead and talk the most controversial topic in Star Wars today. This should be just a segment at the end of the show. Every show is like, and the most controversial topic in Star Wars news today is Boba Fett's ship.
Oh, okay.
Well, that was so last week. Right?
Yeah, it was.
Are we on to something new?
I get it. I get why it should be changed, and part of my brain 100% agrees with it. But then it's because it's been that way for 40 years. It's like, really? Okay.
I think I don't know. I was kind of two minds on this as far as like are they seriously going to retroactively change this and all of and everything?
No.
Or just simply because it's a Lego toy, which makes sense, right? Mm-hmm. Like, don't use that name. But right. I do think they should have gone with this alliteration, which is totally perfect because we all know that Boba Fett's ship is actually a fire spray.
Oh yeah, you told me that. Yeah.
So they should have called it Fett's fire spray.
And that's fine.
That would have been cool. Or Boba Fett's fire spray. But to utilize the actual ship name, like, just inform people what kind of ship it is. Like, from there, I mean, we know what it is in Wikipedia. We know what it is in all of the books. Like, it's listed in so many different things. I'm for proactively changing this. And like I said to you, like, nobody wants, like, their kid's handwritten Santa Claus note to be like, "Dear Santa, I want one slave. Oops, slave -1." It's like, no.
Dirty Santa.
Although everybody in the 80s did put that on there.
Oh, no doubt.
Mine was AT-AT. That was what I wanted.
Yeah, I don't think.
I was at. As for my Santa.
I don't think I ever fully appreciated Boba Fett until I got way older.
The outlaw kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you're not as a kid. You're not really hung up. It's more of an adult thing. Like, who's this random cool person? But because when you're a kid, you're looking at Luke, you're looking at Han.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I think the weird thing is I think I was a Luke all the way up until I had kids, and then I became Han. Yeah.
See, I always liked dark stuff, so I always was that kid that was like, I like Vader. Like,
I want to control people.
Yeah, well, not that. I just liked the darker side of things. Like, I love like that video of the Star Wars down in Disney, where you can walk up to Vader and Vader will give you like this whole spiel, like, join me, join the dark side. And all the kids are like, no, like then you'll have like a couple of quick little lightsaber battles with Vader. Then they move you on down the line. And one kid, as soon as the Vader goes, join me, he like immediately like kneels in front of Vader. And the parents just like grab him like, no, don't do that.
Oh, that's awesome.
Because that would have been me. Like, yes, I want to join Vader. Because that was like we've talked about that. Like I had the classic Return of the Jedi lightsabers that they came out with, which were just a big black handle and like a solid red or green or yellow too.
Yeah.
And I had the red one. My sister had the green one. And I always fought with the red. And it made the sound. From the tube,
I still have the green one. It's got Return of the Jedi on it.
People always forget that they made the yellow one though. They're like, yeah, they made a yellow one.
Speaking of which. Speaking of Empire Strikes Back and Star Wars things in general, my cousin got this for me. So
that's different.
It's got a pink lightsaber. Check that out.
Well, that's that is neat. But that's how when I watch A New Hope. When I watch A New Hope now, I always see that's how I always see Vader's lightsaber. It always to me looks pink.
So I'm holding up for Nick a poster. It is one of 3 of the Coca-Cola Company, 1980. There were 3 posters. Luke looks kind of odd, like he's got some eyeshadow, like some very heavy eyeshadow. No judgment. But the lightsaber is straight up pinkish.
Oh, that's really weird.
And it's not faded that way. It's just, it's not green. But he's surrounded. He's in the Dagobah kind of outfit. The number 2 poster. I don't have number 3.
Oh, you get a host. Oh, that's nice.
Oh, wait, no, I have number 3. I don't have number 2. It's got a piece missing.
Oh, I see.
But still pretty cool for free and given to me.
I always liked that scene on Bespin.
Yes.
Because the colors and the lighting and everything that goes in that scene is just so neat with the smoke, and it's just lovely.
Yeah, I've always liked that too. And I like those old kind of posters. There was one that always hung in my grandpa's basement, and it was Indiana Jones, Temple of Doom. It's the scene where he's on the bridge, and he's got the machete sword in his hand, and I just always thought that was a cool looking poster. I think he probably got it from work, or he worked in a grocery store. It's
funny though how some stuff like that can be worth a fortune, and then some stuff you're like, oh yeah, they made 100,000 copies of that. It's not worth anything,
right?
Because I think I still to this day have the McDonald's toys that were issued for a Phantom Menace, still in little plastic bags, like I never opened them, and people were like, oh, those things are worth 35 cents on eBay.
Yeah, they made 3 million of them. So.
Yeah, it's like nothing. But then I never bought it because I didn't want to spend at the time. I think it was $3,000, I think. But the original Comic-Con 1976 Star Wars poster, the very first Star Wars poster ever made. I've been multiple times I could have bought it, and it's but because they were just handed out at Comic-Con 1976, and they're a little small poster, and then most of them have a crease in it, because they were just handed out, you just folded it up, put it in your bag, or rolled it up, or whatever. But if you actually have one, it's worth quite a bit, and then of course the one I have, which is Revenge of the Jedi, that one's worth quite a bit. It's been a long time since I bought it, but I would say it's probably worth $1,500 now, somewhere in there.
Yeah,
it could be worth more. I don't know. I remember 10 years ago it was worth $1,000, but it's probably worth more than that now.
Well, we were I shared with you on the RC80, the Ramblecast After Dark, that the image that my cousin had sent me. He was helping clean out his wife's mom's barn, and she had a bunch of He-Man stuff in packages. He was excited about the He-Man stuff, but she gave him this box, and it's got about 9 Power of the Force, last series, all in their packages, the coins, the everything. It's specifically R2-D2,
right?
Unpunched. I'm just it's like looking at just money right there. You're just like, oh my gosh, look at all that money that you have. The Calrissian and the pilot gear, Luke and Poncho. I was like, if she has Luke and like Death Star Trooper, like, can you just hook a brother up here? So, yeah, some pretty cool figures.
Well,
And
it's things that you don't think about. Like the first Lego, actually, I don't even think my dad bought it for me. I think he bought it for himself. It's a 3-in-1 from the late '80s, and it's yellow and black and white, and it can be either a Jeep, a bus, or a truck, I think. And I was, years ago, I was looking up like, let's see what, because I didn't remember what the number was, I didn't remember anything about it. And that thing was worth a fortune because it was the very first 3-in-1 Lego made.
Mm-hmm.
And I've still got it somewhere boxed up. So we're not in the original box or anything, but I have the actual Lego. I'm like, oh man, that's so cool. Like just things you don't think about being worth anything. But like, it's like, because you're talking about He-Man, like, Jay, was not even born yet. But he's got all the Transformers, the original '84 versions, which were metal.
The metal ones, yeah.
The metal ones. And I was
oh
like,
my gosh.
God, I was like,
yeah,
these things are worth a fortune.
Yeah, it's nuts. So, all right, let's close out this show. So, we'll talk Star Wars again. If you need a Star Wars fix, check out the Ramblecast After Dark, where Nick and I say more inappropriate things.
That's very true. But if you want to talk about Star Wars and you feel like we're missing out on a topic, please send us an email at theforceiswelldone@gmail.com.
And perhaps even Chris will respond to you.
Maybe.
Check us out. We're on the jandjack.com. That is our go to that page, jandjack.com. Click on the patron link to become a patron. Or click on the merch. We actually do have merchandise as Owen and Brews on there. And other than that, I'd like to thank some patrons that make this show possible with some Star Wars themed names. So we have Toto Tack, Rackus Richter, Planet Rackus, yeah. Mm-hmm. This is a real thinker, Ed Bain. It's always there every week, and I just feel like I have to say it, but Omega Maggie. And I figured this one out at the very end of the show, but Kaminoian Joanne, thanks for doing what you do. Thanks for making this show possible. Come back next week. We'll have some more stuff for you.
Well, a few weeks.
Few weeks, yeah. So this is a great show, kids. It's 1 in a million. Thanks for joining us.
Parsec.